Welcome to the Story a Day podcast. This is Julie Duffy, encouraging you to be a writer today, not someday. Good morning, good evening, good afternoon. Julie here from the Story a Day podcast. And this week begins the month of February here at Story a Day. And I like to have a monthly theme that follows the Writer Code acronym that I've come up with, where it's actually iWriter. We imagine, we write, we refine, improve, triumph, engage, and repeat. And these are parts of the writing life, parts of the writing practice that we need to continually be working on. Writing's more than just writing words on a page or typing into your computer. There's a whole life aspect to it. And this week, in the spirit of celebrating our writing, which is a really key and important part of the process, not just celebrating big wins like finishing a piece or publishing a piece or getting feedback on whatever, those big sort of landmarks. I always encourage you to celebrate everything, getting to your desk, going for a walk without your headphones on with the intention of letting ideas flow through your brain. That's part of the writing process, and I encourage you to celebrate that. Take a moment when you get in from your walk to pat yourself on the back and go, yeah, I did something for my writing today. I engaged with the practice of my writing. So in that spirit, I wanted to highlight a new book that's just come out called The Practice by Seth Godin. And if you're a fan of his podcast, Akimbo, you will have heard a lot of the ideas in this little book. And if you read his blog, you'll have seen a lot of the things on his blog, because his practice is to write a blog post every day. He keeps them short. He edits himself. He is very clear with his ideas. And his style is to be as clear and concise as possible to convey the idea without being bland. So he actually works in public like that. He works on a new book by working it through on his blog and on his podcast. And this one, I've been listening to the ideas for this one drip out over the past few months maybe, and grabbed the book as soon as it came out, because everything I was hearing applies to us here at Story a Day, where we are writing. And yes, Story a Day started as a challenge. Write a story a day in May. But the purpose behind that was always to help me, and by extension you, anyone who wanted to join me on that crazy journey back in 2010, to help us to build writing into our day for 31 days in order to discover the best parts of the practice for ourselves, in order to develop a practice, to make space in our lives for writing, and to make space in our brains for the idea that we could write a story every day, whether or not it was brilliant, whether or not we were in the mood. And it turns out that we can. And sometimes when you do the work, in fact, Seth Godin argues in his book that it is only when you're doing the work that all the other good stuff comes. So this book, The Practice, I'm going to recommend you pick it up, but I'm also going to talk about it in this podcast so that you get the overall gist. And it sort of starts off by talking about how creative work happens and what creativity is. And it's not the muse. It's not some gift from the universe. We're intuitive, yes. We make connections in our brains. But it's not really an outside force coming and depositing things in your brain. And if you're approaching your work that way, there is a greater chance that you might make excuses and allow those excuses to derail you instead of just sitting down and writing. The next thing that he talks about in the book is how skills and talent are two different things. And that is a really important thing to remember when we're doing creative work. Because if you think that there is a pie of talent that was doled out in the universe and that you got a very small slice or no slice, and somebody else who you admire got a gigantic slice and got all these talents and all this one, that is not really how it works. Talent without effort is absolutely worthless. In fact, it's worse than worthless. It's a waste and a sin, if you like to think of the world in those terms. Doing the work is more important. And if you are doing the work and you are not doing the work as well as you would like to be doing the work, there are skills that you can learn and repeat and practice and get better at. The most successful people in any creative endeavour, are the people who've honed their skills and who have approached the work as something that they do, whether they're in the mood or not. They approach, like athletes, I am quite sure, do not always feel like going out and doing drills, but they go out and do it. When you're at the elite level, you do your practice day after day, whether you're inspired or not, because it's the practice and it's the repetition of the skills that makes you better. So if you are approaching your work with the attitude that you aren't talented and that it's not a joy to get to write, that is an opinion, a narrative. If you listened to my podcast a couple of weeks ago with Dr. Julie Helmrich, that is an attitude, a narrative that you can change. Imposter syndrome is a narrative that says, I'm not good enough. I don't know what I'm doing. They're going to find me out. But if you're doing creative work, of course you don't know what you're doing. It's creative. It hasn't been done before. You're going to have to get comfortable with that. And instead of calling it imposter syndrome, maybe we can call it something else. We can rewrite it and call it creative chance or creative courage. You're an imposter. You haven't written this book before. You don't know if you can. But you're going to do everything. You're going to do everything in your power to make sure you can write to the best of your ability. And how you do that is by turning up. And it doesn't have to be every day, but it has to be often enough that it becomes part of the rhythm of your life and that you're committed to doing the work, whether or not you're in the mood. As Seth Godin points out in this book, The Practice, Saturday Night Live does not go out at 11:30 on Saturday nights because it is ready. If you've ever watched it, you can see manifestly that's not why it goes out at 11:30 on a Saturday night. It's quite often not ready, but it goes out at 11:30 at night because they've said it goes out at 11:30 at night and it's done, right? It's not perfect, but it's done. And sometimes it's brilliant. So how do you get out of your own way? In this book, The Practice, Seth Godin argues that you get out of your own way by divorcing effort from outcome, in part. You do the work without being concerned about what's going to happen at the end of the process. That's not 100% true because you also have to think about, and he says this, you have to think about what is this work for? Why are you writing? Is it, there's going to be multiple reasons, but each individual piece, what is it for? What is the thing that made you passionate about it? Who is it for? Who do you think is going to enjoy it? And if it is that kid who's like me at the age of 9 and needs to hear this story, then write the story that way. Write the story out of love for that little kid huddling under the covers who needs to hear it. You're not writing it because you want to send it to a Highlights magazine and get it published and then do this, and then the next step on the ladder in your career is this, and then you need to divorce. I shouldn't say need. One of the ways to get out of your own way is to divorce the work from the anticipated outcome. We don't write because we feel like it, Seth Godin argues. We feel like it because we write. And if you've been here for a while and you've been following me for a while and you've participated in any level at any of the challenges or the weekly writing prompts that I throw out there, you know that this is true. You can sit down and not feel like writing, and once you start writing, you feel like it. This book, The Practice, is not exclusively aimed at artists and writers, although that is a large part of the audience. Seth Godin is also a businessman, and he's aiming this at leaders and people who want to be creative leaders. So parts of the book are more and less applicable to somebody who's creating a writing practice, but writing is at the core of everything that he recommends. And it's a slim book that is written in his compressed, concise, sparse but compelling way. And it's highly, highly recommended by me. I just tore through it once to do to pull out some stuff to talk about for you today. But I will be going back to this book, as I go back to most of his books, anytime I need my head adjusted a little bit, anytime I need to get my attitude right, anytime I need to rewrite that narrative that says things like showing up, doing the work, sending out the work. This is the part that you control. Get back to it. Stop fretting about the stuff you don't control. Do the work that only you can do. Whenever I need someone else to tell me those things, I will quite often turn to Seth Godin's books. So his new book is The Practice. It came out recently. I recommend it. Also recommend his podcast, Akimbo, which comes out weekly, and it is again put together in his precise, compressed style. Some episodes are mind-blowing, some episodes are just entertaining. But yes, I recommend that. And I'd encourage you to think about your practice. Do you actually have a writing practice? What could you do to make it more consistent? Is it an attitude adjustment thing? Is it a routine thing? Do you need to get all your supplies and tools in one place so that when you are ready to write, you can grab them? It could be that you have a desk or a room that you can go to and close the door and write there. It could be that you have a backpack which has your favourite notepad, your favourite pen, a pair of noise-cancelling headphones, and whatever else in it that's just ready to grab and go. And anytime you have an opportunity, that's your mobile office. What things can you do to commit to having a writing practice? Where will you go to up-level your skills so that you're not fretting about whether or not you're talented? There's another thing that Seth Godin mentions in the book, which struck me as I'm thinking about this. Other things that we fret about are we original enough? That often is something that we worry about. He points out that the DNA of a chimp and you and me are 98% the same, literally the same. But it's that 2% that makes all the difference, that made a separate species, that allows us to build skyscrapers, that allows us to go to the moon, that allows us to tell stories and infect other people with our ideas. 2% is more than enough originality. If your writing and ideas are 2% original, you're winning. If they're 1% original, that's all you need. Are you building a practice where you write because you write, because you're a writer, and not because you feel like it, or because some supernatural force plopped an idea into your ear. Are you going to find places where you can level up your skills? And are you going to find a cohort of people who will support you on that journey? When you're hanging out with people who are on the same journey, and some of whom are further ahead on that journey, or working at it more consistently, or playing at a higher level than you, that's a wonderful thing. It doesn't make you feel inadequate. It makes you want to rise to their level. So if you don't have a writing group or a writing community, I would encourage you to find one. I would start with the swagger posts at Story a Day and the comments section of the weekly writing prompt. Get in there and talk to each other, make your commitments for the month, comment on other people's. You'll start to get to know people. And then when the challenge comes round in May, and when I run courses, you can get into a closer group with people who are going to fire up your desire to work, your desire to embrace the identity of writer. So keep an eye out for those things. Think about this week how you can work on your practice. And I would love it if you would come over to the blog post, which is the blog for this podcast, which is storyaday.org/episode 198, and tell me what exists in your writing life as a practice right now, and where there are some gaps, and a step you might take to close those gaps, to improve your practice. We all will always have room for improvement and change, because that's the only thing that's constant, right? Change. Come over to the blog, leave a comment, get involved with the community there, take that step to commit and make your goals public, and I will see you in the comments. If you want to learn to write, don't read another book or article. Start writing. I'm here to invite you to consider the Story a Day 3-day challenge. It's a challenge and a workshop that gets people writing and completing stories in just 3 days, and it works. I'm fanatical about getting more and more diverse stories into the world, and I think yours should be among them. If you're feeling the pull to write or level up your storytelling, let me hold your hand through 3 days of short story writing. Check out the 3-day challenge at storyaday.org/3DC. And speaking of engaging with the community, this week's writing prompt is a great chance for you to achieve something and celebrate it. It's the writing prompt at the site this week is a 100-word story prompt, and you can find that at storyaday.org/wow for Write on Wednesday -achieve. And the prompt is to write a story, a 100-word story about a character who's famous or infamous for one moment in their life. It could be something they did in the past. It could be something that's happening in the story. And we already have a couple of people who have come there and they've shared what they wrote. So if you want to start building a cohort of people, go over there, comment, and leave a comment for the people who've shared their work with us. You can write something, you can tell us you wrote, you don't have to share it, but do also think about signing up for the weekly writing prompts. You can do that right on the page there. And one more thing before I go, I've been playing with this new social network called Clubhouse, which is an audio drop-in kind of thing. It's like a Zoom meeting, except you don't have to look pretty. It's not formal. It's like you drop into these rooms and you just sit there quietly, and you might get invited up to the stage to speak if you raise your hand. I've been hosting some of these with another writing coach called Jen Milius, and we've been playing, so every day next week at 4 p.m. Eastern US time, we will be in Clubhouse, which is an app that's only currently available for Mac. iOS and you need to get an invite from someone. But if you're already in Clubhouse and you're interested in hanging out with us and getting some writing advice or sharing some inspiration, we're running a writer's creativity boost every day at 4 p.m. Eastern, and you can find me at Julie Duffy on Clubhouse. Love to see you in our room. Thanks for listening. Why not come over to the blog at storyaday.org and check out this week's writing prompts and articles. And in the meantime, have a great creative week and, of course, keep writing.